Hello crafters and welcome to P2PCrafts Presents, brought to you by From Picture to Page and Beyond Papercraft shows. Now I'm your host, Michelle Brown, Creative Director at From Picture to Page, which is our scrapbooking, mixed media art, papercrafts and art journaling community. Now P2PCrafts presents a whole heap of interviews with our talented retailers and demonstrations from our guest artists. So for all of the events that have caught up with Season 3, to see who's coming up, and of course all the replays and the links, head over to our website from picturetopageandbeyond.com.au. And while you're there, make sure you're on our email list, because at the end of each week we send out all the links of who's been on, as well as letting you know who's coming up next week, as well as any special announcements. Now, whether you're watching here live on Facebook or you're watching a replay through Facebook or YouTube, we would love to know that you're out there. So pop in the comments, say hi, just like Carolyn and Debbie and Wendy and Kaz and Jane and everyone else has. Let us know where you are in the world, and we hope that you are keeping warm. Now today, we've got a very exciting guest, our favourite art journalist. So today, P2PCrafts presents Niamh Baly. Hello, Niamh.
Hi, how are you?
We're so excited to have you here with us again today.
I'm pretty excited to be here too. I love coming to visit.
We love seeing art journaling. So how are things in Tassie these days?
Tassie is very good. It's beautiful blue skies today. It's not quite as freezing cold as it was yesterday, but yeah, we've had a very mild winter, but it's caught up with us in the last few days.
It certainly has, but perfect weather to stay inside and do some crafting.
Definitely.
Excellent. Now, you've just finished your 100-day challenge recently. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, this is the third year I've done it. So I have managed to do 300 days of art journaling in a row.
Wow.
Over the last 3 years. It's been fantastic. It's a challenge, but the great thing about it is you can only get better if you do things regularly, and it forces you to be consistent. So whether it's a good piece of work or not, you do something every day, and you can make it as small or as big as you want.
Yeah.
I work really quickly. I like to finish an art journal page in the time I've got. But it could be you make a background one day and you add a focal image the next day. But it's just making yourself accountable to art each day.
Yeah. And over that 100 days, because that's what, about 3 months' time, do you find that your thinking sort of changes? Like you're almost dreaded at the start, but then you're thinking ahead as the time progresses?
I find that I love it at the start. In the middle, I find it's a bit of a chore. Not necessarily a chore, but I get into a bit of a rut with it, which then forces me to try new things, which by the end sort of inspires me to keep going again. So you sort of have that trough. But the thing I like about it, which people may not like about it, is I'm held accountable because I choose to post it to Instagram each day. And I actually feel pretty guilty if I haven't got a post on Instagram. I will sometimes do 2 or 3 pages in one night, which will tide me over for a few days. So as long as I know I can post each day, I know I'm accountable to the project. So that's been really good for me. I need that. I think if I did it and didn't have that, I would very quickly go, oh yeah, well, no one cares, so I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, and I think that's important to sort of know yourself as well. And if you know you need that accountability to say, well, Instagram land needs to see it, it's a way of, like you said, getting out there and making sure it gets done each day.
But the big thing for me at the end of last year was, because I've been trying to be on a bit of a health journey, was if I could actually commit myself to sit in my art studio and do 100 days of art, I should really be able to commit myself to go for half an hour on the treadmill or go for a half an hour walk. So I've been trying to do that, and I have to say I haven't been quite as successful as that. But again, with practice, I'm getting much better, and there's a lot less moaning and groaning when I put my runners on. So.
Oh, that's good. And I know myself, when you try and do things like that, sometimes you find yourself, you're almost moaning and growing just out of habit, but you actually do enjoy it. And a bit like getting into the art studio, it's like, oh, I've got to do it again. I hate this. I don't like what I do. Actually, no, last time I did actually enjoy it. And you just, you've got to really catch that self-talk sometimes.
That's it. Yeah. And for me, again, like, I know not many people finish an art journal page and a night, but the satisfaction I get of walking out of my art studio and going, I did that. I've got something in my journal. I've actually achieved something tonight is huge for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's
Excellent.
fun. I would really encourage, and you don't have to start with 100 days. Do 10 days in a row. Do 30 days.
Yeah.
You know, it could be an ACT. It could be really tiny. It doesn't need to be huge. Just choose what's achievable for you and have a go.
Yeah, and I think that's the real key, and something that I've certainly had reinforced over the last few months is that you can get much as many YouTube videos as you want, see as much inspiration on Facebook and Instagram, but you have to do it. You've got to get out there and do the practice and put the hours in, and that's where you're going to get successful.
That's it. Yeah. And like people sort of say, oh, to me, you've got such a unique style, and I still don't think I've got a style because I not copy, but get lots of inspiration from so many other people. But it's just that practice; it becomes second nature to you. So you're quite right.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. So, Niamh, what have you got to share with us today?
Well, today we're going to be doing some lace cut pages. So we're actually going to be cutting into our art journals to make sort of interactive pages, which
That
is going
sounds
to be.
very scary.
It is and it isn't. It's lots of fun. Probably a few people will have a bit of a meltdown when they see me do it, but that's okay. Yeah, it's again practice. I have used in my crafting life. I've always tended to use a craft knife rather than a pair of scissors, so I'm used to using a craft knife. I'm comfortable with it, and again, it's just a practice thing.
Excellent. Well, we'll get set up and we'll jump straight into it.
Cool. Okay.
Excellent. So, like Niamh said, it's okay. We can use our craft knives into our journals as long as, of course, we're being very safe. And I'm so excited to see we've got Lorraine here, we've got Lee, we've got Jenny and Sandra with us. So, we're going to have some fantastic art journaling fun. So, it looks like Niamh is ready to go. So, Niamh, I'll hand over to you.
Okay. So here is a sample piece that I did for Michelle, just to sort of show the sort of things we're going to do. Because in my art journaling channel, I get a lot of comments about how do you make backgrounds and how do you do lace cut pages. So I thought I'd kill two birds with one stone and show you a few different ways. So we're going to be making two really simple backgrounds, and we're going to do a really simple lace cut page. Some of you may think, oh, that looks really intricate, but this is probably one of the easiest ways to cut into your journal. At the end of the session, I'm going to show you a few samples of how you can extend that on to do whatever you want to do with it. But yeah, we'll start off with this. So basically what you need is your art journal, and you're going to need 2 double pages. Doesn't matter what size you work in, but you obviously need the page in the middle that you're going to cut into. Now, I did say the Dilutions journal. The reason for that is the paper is really, really strong. It is a cardboard, but it's really easy to cut. It's very, very smooth. So you can actually make quite fine cuts in this, and it's going to hold up really well. You can make cuts in the Dina Wakley journal. So this is a page that I've cut out of here. But because this cotton rag paper has got some tooth and texture to it, you can find your knife catches on it a little bit. So it can be a little bit more frustrating to cut. So if you've got something smooth to start with, that will help you immensely. The other things that you will need is a craft mat. This is an old cutting board from IKEA. Cost $1, and I've just cut it in half. The thinner you've got, the better. It means it will go right up to the edge of your page, and you can get closer cuts to the edge. It doesn't really matter, and the good old green cutting mats are fine to do that as well. It's preferable you've got one that actually goes out to the whole edge instead of something that's slightly smaller like that, but you can move it around. The other thing you need is a craft knife, whatever one you like, and I had them before because I had to change them. It is really good to have spare blades, because as soon as your blade gets dull, it's going to start tearing. So if you've got lots of fresh blades, you're going to find your cutting a lot easier to do. So the first thing we're actually going to do before cutting is do our backgrounds, because that will give us a chance to let them dry. And we're going to do 2 different backgrounds. And I hope you don't mind finger painting, because that's my favourite thing to do, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm just going to put out some splodges of paint. I've put out very, very little. I'm using the Paper Artsy paints, but this will work with any paint you've got. You can use a brush to do this. You can use a sponge. It's up to you. I just prefer it with my fingers. And all I'm going to do is just rub it out until there's no more paint. It's not actually moving out anywhere. Okay, so I find by doing this with my fingers, I know exactly that paint is now dry. And that's really important because I'm going to be doing a usual Niamh Baly and actually mixing lots of different colours. If these were wet against each other, the colours are obviously going to mix, and you know, pink and green don't necessarily make a great colour combination when they're mixed together. So just be aware of that. You can layer over acrylic paints when they are dry and they're not going to mix, so they will layer. If that was wet, I would get a nice shade of brown happening. If you've put out too much paint, you can always use a heat tool to dry it off in between. Paper white. But the secret is really just putting out minimal amounts of paint, as you can always add more paint afterwards. It's harder to take it away. So this is probably one of my favorite backgrounds to do because it's just so quick and easy. I don't have to think about it. I can use any colors that are in close range to what I've got. And because it's quite a busy background, it works really well with paper cutting. The other thing, if you have got like a use it up journal, I know I talked about that the last time I was on here. So a journal that you put your excess paint into, and you get really funny backgrounds that have got sort of all these different paints over it and you don't know what to do with them. They're great pages to use as your paper cut pages as well, because you're going to have an instant focal image put over the top of them that will help frame it. Oops. You see, I'm not really worrying if it looks a little bit messy. It's all going to blend in the end. Awesome. There's one page done.
That is amazing. Speed art journaling.
For those people who've got kids at home, get them to art journal with you. Get them to actually do some backgrounds for you, because they love doing this sort of stuff and they don't worry about colours and they don't worry about how it looks, and you can do stuff over the top of it, and it's a great way to help loosen you up. So we'll come back and add some bits to that in a minute, but just go on to the other page. Move my craft match over here. So for the second page, which I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to use some dilutions paints. There's no difference, really. I could have used the same paints I had before. I'm just using these ones, except that one's not open. So I'm going to use this one. That's what happens when you've got doubles of things. Oops. So again, I'm not putting out too much paint. I've actually probably put out a bit more than I needed to. I'm just going to use a sponge this time. Again, if I wanted to, I could use my fingers. But instead of having that sort of organic odd looking shapes that I had before, I'm going to get such more rectangle-y shapes. I can't think of words. This is my use it up journal. So you can see I already had some paint in here from before. I have too much paint on this at the moment, so I'm just scraping my extra stuff into here. So this will be a background for another day that I can do something with. So it's just really handy to have things like that around. Oops. This paint's slightly runnier, so it comes out faster. I always forget that when I do it. So again, that paint I put down before has dried because I've rubbed it out so fine. It dries really quickly on the page, which is fantastic. Okay, because these paints are slightly more translucent, you can actually see some colour mixing happening too, which is quite cool. And then I'm going to go in my yellow. So sort of all the colour mixing books would probably tell you don't put your primaries on together because you're going to mix different colours, but live dangerously. So again, the pages that we're going to be doing today, they're great pages to experiment with because you can experiment with your backgrounds, which is the way to learn. And if you don't like it, never chop it up or throw it out or paint over it because you can always do something over the top to rescue it. So, which is really important as well. Okay. So now I've got that background too. I actually quite like that. I'm going to do some stenciling over the top of it. Right, just going into my stencil things. So I've got this really cool stencil from the Crafters Workshop with lots of different patterns on it. I love tools that you can use in multitudes of ways. It just makes life so much easier when you can use one thing lots of different ways. Okay, so I always forget when I do this. Right, so I'm going to alternate the colours. So over my blues, I'm going to stencil with pink. Again, for those people who are new to stenciling, I use a makeup sponge. I put out my paint and I actually tap it into the surface so the paint has actually got into the surface of the sponge. You don't want paint sitting on the top because that's when you're going to get leak through into or underneath your stencil. You also keep pouncing it over and over until you've basically got no paint left. Now, the secret to this stenciling is overlapping over the areas of colour. So while I wanted that on the blue, I've actually overlapped into the pink and yellow areas, and that helps you get a more seamless transition into what you're doing. Okay, so in my yellow bits, I'm going to do blue. I had to think about that. I want to do yellow and yellow. I'm going to use this chevron pattern. So I do find, don't know if it's just me, but the new Dylusions blues are just a lot more translucent than they used to be in the old jars. So you don't get quite as a contrast in colour. I don't know if it's just the one I've got or if anyone else has found that, but you can still see it come up. So. And again, for those of you following this at home, you can take a lot more time and care and be a lot more careful. But I know we're going to be doing stuff over the top of this. So this is just to get some texture and some different patterns into the background. Oops, missed that bit there. Okay, so I've got my yellow to go over my pink. So again, I'm overlapping the patterns and overlapping the shapes just to help everything flow together. So really quickly and easily, we've got a pretty cool background just using 3 colours of paint and a stencil. And because everything's gone on so fine, it's dry already. So again, you can work really, really quickly with this. So I'm just, again, going to scrape off my extra paint because I hate wasting anything, especially when I've got my journal out here anyway. Cool. Okay. So I've got my 2 pages now. At the end, I'll go back and decide if I actually want to put anything over this. I'm just going to leave that for the moment and see how it's going to look once we do our paper cut. So this is the scary bit. It's not actually scary. First thing I'm going to start off with is some washi. Now, you don't actually have to do this, but for beginners, I find it's really, really helpful because this gives you a border that you're not going to cut in with too, but it comes off easily at the end. So get your oldest washi that you hate. It's a great way to use it up. And just make a border around the outside of your page. And this is going to remind you that you're not going to cut into the washi tape. Okay. Next most important thing is having our cutting board. So I'm just going to put that down behind. Now, I'm actually going to do this all freehand. If you wanted to draw something out beforehand, you could. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I find it actually puts a little bit of pressure on me if I draw it out beforehand. And I actually have to think more if I draw it out beforehand because I have to think, well, what am I going to cut and what am I not going to cut? So I challenge you to have a go at doing this straight into your page. If you really, really hate it or it doesn't work, you can always cut this page out and you've still got 2 really cool backgrounds you can go back and work on. You could also try this just in a single sheet of cardboard beforehand and use that to glue into your book afterwards. So you can have a bit of practice if you don't want to do it straight into your journal. It's going to sit down. I've got journal sitting there. Okay.
So Niamh, Sandra was just asking if you could trace a stencil for the pattern.
Definitely. That's one of the things you can do. You can also stamp out some stamps and cut out around the stamps. So at the end, I'm actually going to show you some different ways of samples of different ways I've done paper cutting. But yes, definitely tracing out around some stencils are really good. But depending on what stencils, you've obviously got really simple stencils. They usually, some of them usually have more complicated, why you don't stencils like that, bits to cut out. Obviously, you probably wouldn't start with something like that. But cutting one of those shapes is actually going to be quite difficult because you're going to have to turn your hand in a funny way. So, yeah, just choose your stencils with caution if you're going to do that, or be really, really patient. Neither of which I actually am. So,
good advice.
Okay, so the easiest cut you can possibly make is leaf shapes, because your hand naturally cuts in that way. So I'm just going to do that. Just going to make a leaf shape. Oops, I didn't actually cut out around that. There you go. That wasn't scary, was it? So once you've got your first shape, I'm sort of going to make a flowerish pattern with that. And I'm going to turn my journal around as I go. I find that's a little bit easier, so it may go off the screen at some points. The only thing you need to realise is you need to leave about half a centimetre, about 5 mils between each of your cuts, just to have a bridge that's thick enough that it's not going to be really, really too fine. And I've just completely negated what I said because I've cut into it, but that's okay. So all these bits that you cut out, you can then use as extra pieces on a journal somewhere else. So you can see just by cutting like that, I'm cutting towards myself. Really, really important that you always cut towards yourself, which sounds totally mental, But if you're cutting towards yourself, you're actually watching where it's going, and you've actually got a little bit more control of it. If I tried to cut away from myself, I'm more likely to make a mess of it. So you can vary the sizes, vary the shapes. If you get to the edge like I have here, I'm just going to cut down along the edge of where my washi is. So the first thing you're doing is you're going to cut out your biggest shapes, whatever they may be. And, you know, I'm sort of suggesting, oh, that's really fine. I'm suggesting this shape because I find it easier to cut. But if you find circles or squares easier to cut, we'll cut those. Okay, so you can see on this one, I've actually cut that really, really fine. Because this cardboard is so strong, I'm not really concerned about it. If I wanted to, I could strengthen that with a piece of masking tape to make it a little bit stronger. Okay, so I could stop there if I wanted to. One of the things that's really satisfying about doing paper cuts is once you take out your cutting, you can see immediately how effective it's going to look. So I actually really love that. Because it's me, I'm going to add more to it though. So this is one of these things, stop when you're comfortable. I'm going to show you everything in the kitchen sink. You stop when you're happy with it. So I'm going to go back in. I've got now these areas to work with that I'm going to cut some more shapes out of these. And again, I'm going to use the same shapes until I can't use those shapes anymore.
And Kathy's just pointing out that having a sharp knife is really important for this part of the process.
Very, very important. If you find anything dragging, you need to change your knife straight away. Just for your sanity and your safety alone, having a sharp knife is really important. And they're not that expensive, so. But you can see how easily those shapes are popping out. The other thing that's good is if you do have a sharp blade and you cut yourself, it's better having a sharp blade than a dull blade. I do know from experience. I was changing a blade once and managed to drop it and pin it in my foot. So that was fun. So at any stage, if you cut somewhere you're not supposed to, you can fix it up with masking tape to strengthen it. So again, we've got that. I'm still going to go in and cut these extra bits out because it's me. And you can certainly change up the shape. So you could have squares and circles and diamonds. You could do beautiful mandala patterns with them if you wanted to as well. So it really is up to you and up to your cutting skill. If you're really fine with using a craft knife, you can get more intricate pretty easily. I suppose the only secret to this is knowing where your bridges are going to be and how wide they're going to be. So And these are the bridges, the little bits in between that hold everything together. And this is the reason why I like doing this without really planning it beforehand, because I can see here I've got a space, I've got room to cut something out of. If I tried to work this out beforehand, I would forget which bits I'm cutting and which bits I'm not and get into a bit of a mess. That's just me personally. I'm sure you guys are probably a lot more organised than I am and would do it much better. So you can get really, really fine cuts as well.
And I think it's a great idea having the washi tape around the edge. It just really reminds you that you need that border intact.
Yeah. Or it's just so easy to go further when you didn't mean to, or the knife to slip. So it just is that automatic reminder that, no, I need to stop there, slow down.
Or how often do we think we know what we're doing and then find ourselves all muddled up and then we've cut the wrong one? So
Yes, well, that piece that I showed you beforehand in my small Dina Wakely journal, I really enjoyed making it. I had this really great idea to make that mask, but because I was having to base it off a stamp and I had to think about it because I wanted to add the mask onto it, it took me ages and I kept doing it and I kept cutting out the wrong bits and it was really frustrating me. So I ended up having to colour code it all to cut it, which works as well. But yeah, I actually had to try that. It's the first time I've ever really had to do a practice piece, and I had to do the practice piece about 3 times to get it to the way I wanted it. So now I'm just getting ridiculously fussy with the little cuts I'm making, but I am stopping shortly. So right, last cut. Awesome. So that's how easy it is to do lace cuts in your books. Everyone can do that.
well, Niamh, you've certainly inspired a few people. We've got Carolyn said she wants to give it a go. Tammy says it looks amazing. And Sherry says it looks fantastic. So I think we've got a few people willing to give it a try.
Excellent. Good job. Now, the only thing is with washi tape, I'm proving my point here, it does help if you heat it up beforehand before you take it off. It comes off a little bit easier. So just so you get the full effect. So that's my main tip. I used to do this without the washi tape before, but I've just found since it just gives you that really solid border that means your piece isn't going to be as weak as it could be if you didn't have it. Sorry, I am going to listen to my own advice. Yes, if you do draw the design first, you could shade out what you wanted to do. That would be really handy. And if you wanted to use a stencil, stenciling through it with a really light coloured paint so you know which bits you want to cut out is a really good idea as well. So that really helps you. Because in most of the lace cut pages that I do, which I'll do in a moment, is I actually paint this black because you just get that stunning contrast, particularly with such a bright colour. Mind you, actually, I really like the white on it. So I don't know if I will or not. And the great thing is you can flip it over and you've got this beautiful thing happening on both sides. So that's pretty much lace cut pages. It really is as simple as that. Obviously, if you're painting it black, put down some tide in between to cover it. I tend to use gesso to do it really, really quickly. I used a really terrible brush to do this, actually. That's awful, Niamh. All my stuff around me and I can't grab the right stuff. It's always the way. So I do find with these, using a sponge is a little bit easier to put the gesso on. You just do need to be quite careful. It's a bit like going through a stencil. Going up and down is a lot easier. You can sort of drag it round, but you just need to be really careful that you don't actually tear one of those bridges, especially a few of mine that are really fine. You just need to make sure about that. So for those people who are watching who have done classes with Tracy Scott, she's amazing at doing lace cuts and does some really, really intricate one. She uses her own stencils a lot to help her with her paper cuts as well. But one of the things that she does, which I loved, was she stamps over her black pages with archival ink. And what happens is if you use a really matte gesso, like this is a Dina Wakefield gesso, it's really, really matte, and stamp over with the archival ink in black as well, you've got a shiny black versus a matte black, and you get this really cool, really subtle texture in the background that you don't necessarily notice what the stamped image is, but you do notice that there's something going on the page. So have a go at that if you've got the stuff at home to do.
And so, Niamh, what's the thinking behind the black gesso?
I just like it because it frames it up. I probably should have left it white, but I had the paint on it already. And the other reason is quite often when I'm doing these, it's either on pages that I've already got paint scraped on it or paint's leaked through it. So hiding stuff with white gesso is a little bit harder, especially with sort of really strongly bright coloured acrylic inks. Black gesso kind of hides everything. So
Okay, so because it's more opaque, you find it's better for this process.
yeah, but you could use anything. Like if you've got any acrylic paint, you just might need to put a few coats on. That's all. Mm-hmm. So whatever takes your fancy, really. Mm-hmm. There you go. So you can see the difference having the black on it to frame it up.
Yeah, it instantly makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So you can get really, really technical with this, I suppose. You can leave it, like, I will do the other side in a minute, and don't do that. If you wanted to, and I know Diary does this a lot with stencils, you know, you could then go into these bits and you could write quotes or stencil in between here and add extra detail to it, particularly on a page like this where you haven't done much. You could stencil in between. So we'll quickly do this side. I'll give you an example of that. But hopefully everyone's now going to be cutting into their journals and doing amazing things.
Yes, I think now someone said, Kerry's playing along, so she's doing well.
And playing along while listening and working, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that's definitely going to give it a try, so that is good to hear.
Fantastic. And please, you know, I know Michelle's got her paper posse things. Tag my name in it because I'd love to see what you come up with. Or pop it up or on Instagram. Tag my name in it so I can have a look because I love seeing what other people come up with. It always inspires me seeing what everyone else comes up with. The best part of teaching is actually seeing what the students do. I think they think it's coming to see the teacher, but in actual fact for me it's actually seeing what the students do.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always fascinating how you can give everyone exactly the same instructions and still get different results. But that's what we love art journaling.
Well, that's it. That's one of my favourite things to do because I'm a primary school teacher. So one of my challenges is I give my kids in the class exactly the same materials and say do something, and they don't necessarily, I say, sort of don't fib to them, but I sort of say everyone's got something and make some art with it, and then at the end they actually discover they've all had exactly the same materials, and they just get blown away that they've created so many different things by using the same starting point.
Yeah, I think as adults we just forget to learn how to play like kids.
That's it. Great thing is about acrylic paint, if you accidentally put it somewhere you don't like and the original layer is dry, you can wipe it away with a wet wipe while it's still wet. I think it's the main reason why I love working in acrylics, because I'm not necessarily the neatest worker, and because I work fast I tend to get stuff where I shouldn't have it. So being able to have it being a little bit more forgiving is really, really handy. Oh, hello, Eleanor. How are you? There you go, Michelle. You've got international. You've got someone from Israel here.
Oh, excellent. And I noticed we had someone from the US as well. So welcome, everyone. And definitely, as Niamh said, so we've got a Facebook group called the Papercraft Posse, and you are more than welcome to post your work in there, and then we'll be able to see all the different results.
It definitely does look like stained glass, and I suppose that's where the original inspiration came from. So you can see here I've whoopsied. I'm just going to go in and clean that off. So yeah, so there's a plainer page that you can do it with, but I'm not going to do this whole page because that's going to take ages. But you can go in and use this like a stencil.
So actually drawing through your cutting.
Yeah.
To put that pattern on the other side. And what pen are you using to draw the lines?
I'm using a Posca paint pen because, again, acrylic paint going over acrylic. The Fugal pen would work really well. The only issue I have with that is it's a fabulous, fabulous pen. It does take a little while to dry, and I have a really good tendency of smudging it. So, yeah, whatever you've got that you like working with. And again, it doesn't need to be black. It can be any colour you want. So, yeah, so you'll end up with your stenciled image there. That's not brilliant, but it gives you an idea of something else you could do. I could go in and write a quote or write some words in here as well if I wanted to. Or if you've got a really, really busy page, you can have that. So you've got both pages you can work with at the same time.
Yeah, that looks great. But again, you don't have to get too overwhelmed by working with the 3 pages as well. You can just build it up slowly.
That's it. And the other thing that I was going to show you is if you don't want to do your backgrounds like this, or you've got a page like this and you think, yeah, I really don't like that. Lots of companies, including Scrap FX, have got some really cool rice papers that you could glue into your journal. And you've got an instant background for your paper cut page. So, or, you know, if you've got scrapbooking papers, you can put those behind them. So there's the possibilities are absolutely endless with something like this. So depending on what you want to do, whether it's just working on the paper cut, whether it's actually adding in the background as well, you can make it as simple or as complicated as you want it to be. So on that note, I will show you some examples of some things that are slightly more complicated to do with paper cutting. Right, down here, sorry. So this is a page that I did a while ago, and you can see I've used that same simple leaf shape to cut this out, this was actually a finished page that I didn't really like, and I've just cut out over it. I didn't paint it black in the end. I just left it in this the colour that was painted, so you don't have to always cover it black. And then I've got, on the other page, I've just done a quote. I've actually glued this down to my other page, so this isn't interactive. It doesn't flip. It's actually glued down onto that page. You don't necessarily always have to have it flip. It can be glued down, so it's more like a stained glass window.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah. So this is another one that I did. I had some really, really personal journaling in the background that I just needed to get out of my system. And I had this other page, and I thought, well, I could put this this page over the top. And I like the quote, everyone has a secret that could break your heart. What's yours? Which worked well with the journaling in the background.
Yeah.
So you can't read the journaling. And once I had done the journaling, I didn't necessarily want to read it again. But this reminds me that, you know, there was obviously some stuff going on that page. You mentioned the 100-day project. This is what I did to celebrate my very first 100 days. This is the first year I did it. And I just took screenshots of the 100 days for my Instagram page. And your paper cut could be as easy as just cutting in a border.
Oh, wow.
So, just using the words and cutting out around it. So it doesn't need to be a whole page. It can be part of your page. This is another one for those people who've got lots of washi in their life. I just did 2 pages absolutely full of washi tapes, and then cut out this female figure and lots of stars in the background. So again, depending on how you want your work to work, this works on both pages. Sometimes it only works on one page. This page is the one I was talking about with the stamping. So I actually stamped out onto my sheet the dilution stamps that are here and cut them out slightly larger than I needed to, so then when I came to this page I could actually stamp through it and they lined up, and then I wrote around it as well. If you're doing writing, obviously you can't do the little bits in the middle. You just need to sort of, well, you can do, but it gets a bit more complicated. But I actually quite like the look of those sort of block letters without the bits in the middle. You can still read it. And, you know, obviously I was getting a little bit complicated on this stage because I've stamped this out and I cut a letter through it and so on. So you can have it really, really simple, or you can get really, really complicated. Obviously with pages like this, they don't work. You can sort of see what's happening, but, you know, I would probably be just as well to leave those glued down to those pages because it works like that. So, yeah, this is, if you're after a real challenge.
I think there might be some of our crafters up to it.
I'm sure they would be. This piece has I actually dreamt of making this page.
Oh, wow.
That has never happened to me before. And as like, I had this dream, I had this plan, because again, I don't usually plan out my pages, I just sit down and create, but I actually had this plan that was going to happen. So my kids were listening to Play School and they were singing this rainbow song, which I'd never heard before, but I really loved it. And it was just this worm ear going through all the time, and I ended up with this rainbow page. So it's a 8-page spread that all works together. So that's what it looks like, but you're actually seeing through to the purple page, which is 8 pages back. And how it works is by cutting out the letters in the previous page, you get the color that it's talking about. So paint the red up in the sky, then you go onto the red page and you can see the orange come through. I had a slight issue with this one because when I cut it, I realised that I actually had to start with the red first, and I put it too low down on the page. So I thought I was starting at the bottom of the rainbow, but I actually had to start at the top of the rainbow and cut down, which is why my orange is halfway through that page. But you can see here that the further you get into the cut, the less cutting you actually have to do.
Yeah.
It becomes more chunky because obviously you want to see more from the front. So by the time it gets down to these pages, there's very little actually being cut out of it.
Oh, that's amazing.
So So I was really happy with that, and it only took me a night or 2 nights to do. The only thing is with this one, and which is why I warned you about heating the washi, the washi I used on this one actually is still a little bit sticky, so some of it sticks together. And you're talking about using stamps before, so I've actually used stamps on these and cut them out and used them as part of the image. So there you go, a very positive history on how to do lace cut pages.
Definitely.
You can do really simple, you can do really intricate, but it all works the same way.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that's great to see a nice simple page, but then also some examples of what else can be done as well. So
yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Okay, I'll give you a minute to get your camera back and then we'll answer some questions. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Wasn't that just the most amazing tutorial? So I do hope you give it a go. And like I said, maybe if for those of you that feel you need to do a bit more planning, then you can plan it a little bit. But otherwise, like Niamh says, just give it a go. And if you build it up slowly and just keep in mind to use that border and use those bridges, then I think you can't go too wrong. So, Niamh, that was just fantastic. I think that rainbow page has just blown everybody away.
Thank you. It was lots of fun to make.
Yeah, excellent. And like I said, I think it just needs to...
But there may be a class coming up on that rainbow page in the next few weeks.
Wow.
Possibly.
I think that is... Oh, my goodness. Could you imagine? I think that would be very ambitious of you, but definitely worth giving it a go.
Yeah.
Get some good results. Excellent. So I don't think we had any other questions. We had, where was it? We've got Susan watching from California, so I hope they're doing well with the wildfires over there. Liz is loving the page. Wendy, Sandra, Carolyn. Yeah, I think everyone is going to give it a go. Pam says she can see a challenge coming on, so I think that is fantastic. Excellent.
Maybe it could be a challenge on the Papercraft Bossy that everyone tries a lace cut page.
Yeah, I think we definitely need to give it a go. Sandra says yes as well. Would love to try the rainbow page. Excellent. So, Niamh, thank you so much for sharing your art journaling with us this afternoon. It's been a fantastic time.
You are very, very welcome. I absolutely love doing it, and it's just such a pleasure with all these amazing people who are so enthusiastic. So I'm more than happy to share with you because I love it.
Yeah, excellent. Well, we will definitely make sure we follow you on Instagram. Oh, and I was going to ask you about YouTube because I think last time we saw you, you hadn't quite hit your 10,000 followers.
I've got 10,500 now.
That's amazing. So how has your life changed hitting 10,000 subscribers on YouTube?
Not greatly. Well, it has and it hasn't. It's been fantastic. It was a goal I've been waiting to go for so long. But I think the biggest change has actually been teaching the online classes. So many people who've watched the YouTube videos have sort of been asking about the classes, and the fact that people who follow me from YouTube have actually come and done the classes has been amazing.
Yeah.
So I've gone from teaching, at my local shop where I'm based, we have a maximum of 16 people in our classes, and we've had 60 odd in each of the classes I've done so far, and they're still available for you to join. So if you want to, I'll send Michelle the link, but the classes are all there ready and waiting for you to go. The next class I'm doing live will be on the 5th of September at 2 p.m. And that's all about using faces or using big focal images in your art journaling pages. So we'll talk a little bit about colour theory, about doing some backgrounds, about I'll be using the Dina Wakely collage faces, but we'll also be talking about ways that you can draw and create your own if you don't have access to them, because not everyone does. So.
Oh, excellent. So where's the best place to get information about your upcoming classes?
If you follow me on Facebook, Niamh's art journaling page, all the classes are through Bev's Crosscraft, and they're all sitting there too. And Instagram, I put some stuff up as well. And on the YouTube channel, I've actually got a sneak peek video of what we're actually going to be doing and explain the format of the class and so on. So, yeah.
Excellent. Well, we've linked directly to your YouTube channel on this post, so people will definitely be able to find you there.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity.
No, you are more than welcome. Like I said, we've got a fantastic collection of mixed media artists and scrapbookers and art journalists and card makers, and it's good to have a good variety.
Actually, on that, I've done this in an art journal page, but you can translate that so easily to a scrapbooking page or to the front of a card. You know, that would be so easy to do. So just because it's been done in an art journal page, don't think it has to be done in an art journal page.
Yep, exactly. There's so many different ways that we can do it. So
yeah.
Excellent. Well, I know that you'll be around to answer any questions in the comments. So if anyone gives it a go and has any hassles there, or like we said, head over to the Papercraft Posse group and we can certainly help out there.
Yeah, not a problem.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Niamh.
Okay, bye everybody.
Bye. Excellent. So I hope you enjoyed that art journaling class with Niamh. I'm certainly inspired to look at doing a bit more lace cutting in my journal. I think it might be one of those things that just once you get that first one under your belt and out of the way, it's not quite as scary as long as we follow those basic rules of keeping a good border and keeping those bridges in place. So thank you so much for joining us all today. Like Niamh said, there's a link there to her YouTube channel, and of course over at the From Picture to Page website you can see the replay, link to all of her socials as well, and catch up with Niamh somewhere online. So I hope you've had a good afternoon. Like I said, head over to our website from picture to page and beyond.com.au where you can see all the replays from Session 3 P2PCrafts Presents as well as Season 1, Season 2. See who else is coming up for Season 3. And of course, we need your help. So while you are here, make sure you give us a like, add a comment, and of course, share us with all your crafty friends, because we want everyone to come and join in all the fun that we're having online, whether you're in Victoria, somewhere else in Australia, or around the world. We're really excited to be able to connect with you through crafting. So this is Michelle signing off. We hope you have a crafty day.